Hello, and welcome to another episode of Literary as Feck, where myself, Nick, and himself
Peter
talk about books and book-related things. And it's my choice this time, and I chose. So I'm on a year of, and I may extend it past this year, but I'm on a year of trying not to ever do reread things. I'm trying not to. So this is not just a new book to me, but this is a new author to me. I hadn't read anything about it.
I'm kind of curious about this actually, because you did mention it before. Are you finding it at all like, are you jonesing for a
A
old
reread?
favorite?
No,
Okay.
no. It's yeah, it hasn't been an issue at all. In fact,
I just have this image of you like heading off to the bath with your new book, and then you walking past like a shelf of Richard Stark Parker books, and
right.
hang in your heart for
Mm,
not rereading The Juggler for the 25th time or
right.
something.
No, it's good. I mean, there's reasons why. Obviously, there's things that I'd love to talk about because I love them, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think I'm gonna put that off maybe for a few years. We may circle back to some of those things. But also the issue is because often there's not a lot that I have read that I love that you haven't also read.
Oh, you think so?
I mean, like, let's putting aside things I suspect that you will absolutely not enjoy at all, like the entire worlds of fantasy literature, for example, or there might be the occasional thing in there that I think, okay, I like that, but that's not going to be.
What do you think would be, because this is interesting, because we don't do this, but for instance, me and Ron do the I Hate You Man Valentine specials where we deliberately
Right.
choose something which you're going to take in next year. We're forcing you to. You have to do it next.
Okay. All right.
Um, what would be top of that list, do you think, of something that you genuinely like? I really, really love this, but Clive wouldn't get on with this at all.
I mean, I don't know if
I don't think I have that for you. I don't think.
right. I don't know. I would wonder about something like, but I could be wrong. But like something like Philip Pullman's his Dark Materials
Oh,
trilogy,
okay, okay.
or something like
I've never read those. I've always I'm curious for sure, but I can see how, yeah, I don't really quite know exactly what the fine tuning is on that, so it
right.
could go either way. Yeah.
Or something like Jonathan Stroud's Bartimaeus books, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't. How much of a fan of Lord of the Rings are you, or are you at all? Like the books, like
Yeah,
separating
I mean,
them.
I got on of all those. I think I enjoyed The Hobbit the most,
Mhm.
like, because that
Right,
was oh, this is, you know, it's not
self-contained, and
sprawling FB. Yeah, and but even that was like, I read it all and I quite enjoyed parts of it, but I certainly, I wasn't one of these people who were like,
life was
yeah,
changed by
yeah,
the experience. Yeah.
exactly. But it was, no, quite a good read. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So anyway, basically the challenge for me this year was, yeah, as I said, to try to not return to things that I already know I like, and instead to try some new things. So there was like some years back when I first fell in love with H.P. Lovecraft's stories, I would have read his essay, or whatever it is, on supernatural fiction or whatever the hell it's called, right? But he wrote quite a well-known essay where he went back through his own influences and kind of traced this lineage of people. And so as time has gone on, I have delved into some of those books that are brought up in that, right? Things like Arthur Machen, or Lord Dunsany, or Ambrose Bierce and stuff like that. So this was one that
We should probably talk Ambrose Bierce one day,
I
actually.
agree. In fact, I was thinking, did he? Because so the author we're talking about today, William Hope Hodgson, he wrote a series of stories about like a supernatural detective called
Anarchy.
Karnaki, yeah, which I haven't read. But then apparently Ambrose Bierce also had like, and I was wondering if that was something we should look into, like the lineage of supernatural, like before John Constantine and all of that sort of more recent
Right.
stuff. Like, where does that sort of begin, the idea, or like Kolchak the Night Stalker, but like,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I've read the Karnaki stories, and yeah, as everyone said, the one to go for is the Whistling Room, is the one that's
Okay.
has the most. Yeah, I won't spoil it, but
Yeah.
memorable central image. Let's put it that
Okay.
way, which once read is difficult to unread. That's pretty
Right.
good. I can't remember if I read the Kolchak novels on, but no, I'd be interested. I'm not sure what the Ambrose Bierce ones are, but I've been planning to get to Bierce at a certain point. Anyway, I quite like to do Ambrose Bierce, and I'd quite like to do, because I think it's a novel as well. I know there's a film based on it, Old Gringo, which is because Ambrose Bierce famously kind of went down to Mexico and just
Right. Disappeared.
disappeared, right? I
Yes.
think
I think he was hanging out with B. Traven. I think the two of them just struck up a real friendship and disappeared
right.
together.
But there's a book about a kind of bit of speculative fiction about what happened to Ambrose Bierce, and I think it might have something to do with some Pancho Villa stuff, or I can't
Yeah.
remember. But
Oh,
they,
that
they, made,
sounds.
they made a film with Andy Garcia, I think. Anyway,
Yeah, no, that sounds like
yeah,
my cup of tea for sure.
dancing
So
around the issue here.
so William Hope Hodgson is. I just recently he came up. I was reading something, and then I was reminded that he existed and that he had written some things that Lovecraft had liked. And I think I recommended a book that you'd already read, The House on the Borderland.
Right.
So we agreed on this as a compromise since you hadn't read this.
Yeah, and like you, similarly, I went through a period of doing a lot of those Lovecraft kind of it. There's William Wordsworth, and then you got Clark Ashton Smith, and,
those are more contemporaries, I think.
yeah.
And then
What's the Hounds of Tindalos? What's his name? That guy.
Right.
There's another. Anyway, there's
Yes.
two of those big names, right?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, Ghost Pirates I hadn't. Borderlands I read, and the Kanaki stories. I'm quite keen to read Boats of Glengarrick and the Nightland as well. Those are the other two biggies, right?
Yeah, the Nightlands, I think,
and maybe a good collection of his non-Kanaki short stories would probably be worth a read as well.
Yeah, because one of the things I discovered, which I guess you already knew about just yesterday, was that he also wrote a short story that was the inspiration for Matango.
Yes, The Voice of the Night.
And another, apparently a couple of more direct adaptations from the original story as well for TV shows and other things back a long ways.
Is it like it's one of those TV series is like Suspense or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I've always meant to. I think it's on YouTube or something. But I've always quite fancied just to compare it to.
In fact, I was going to recommend maybe for our next one of these. I discovered a book written by what the hell is it called? Anyway, I might just be called The Fungus, but it's clearly from that.
Yes.
You know about this?
Well, is this the? Oh, it might be a different fungus. The fungus I'm thinking of is the Harry Adam Knight.
Yes.
John Brosnan one. Yes.
Have you already read this?
I have. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Of course you have. What the fuck have you? Clive? Never mind. That was something I was interested. But I'll read it at my own time then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, yes.
It's always try and keep together when you find out you've been cuckolded in public. It's
yes. I'm sure I'll manage to somehow.
You'll have strong words with me off air.
Off air, yes. Fucking stop reading. But there was a couple of there's a couple of other. So there was a few other fungoid related novels and comics and things that were.
Oh no, I'm always down for a bit of fungus. Yeah.
So anyway. So you knew about him obviously before. You know about his life story, about his.
I don't know much. I know like he became a bodybuilder at one point as well.
Yes.
Kind of quite just like unusual for, like, you can't imagine old HP pumping iron.
No. Well, like apparently because he used to get because he was quite and if you see his photograph on Wikipedia, he was quite a handsome guy. And so apparently he was like ruthlessly mocked and bullied by the sailors because he went into like a nautical life quite young, right? And
right. A lot of his stories are nautical as fuck, right?
Yeah. And apparently he got swole in order to deal with the fact that he was getting bullied, and so it was very much uh, it wasn't done for health. It was done so he could beat people up, which is kind of
Right. Yeah, he's
hilarious.
definitely from the more of those bunch of people. He's definitely on the more butch end of the spectrum, like Robert E. Howard. Uh,
Yes.
right. Yeah.
And then apparently he started some sort of like he was the inventor and teacher of a system that will cure indigestion. And then he was like a personal trainer. Like this is like in the 1890s. That's a very early adopter of the concept of being a personal trainer.
Yeah, well, he also sounds. I mean, if we're talking things about, he sounds. When was Kellogg? When did
Oh
Kellogg have
yes,
his sanatorium and all of
probably
that?
yeah. I mean, it's probably around this turn of the
Yeah.
century.
Oddly enough, I just recently because it's one of those things I've always thought I like the concept of it more than the execution, and I hadn't seen it since it was new, maybe. And I thought I'm gonna try the Road to Wellville because
Oh yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of sounds like Anthony Hopkins playing a buck-toothed kind of Kellogg, and it's got an interesting cast. You got John Cusack and Bridget Fonda, and
Is it actually Kellogg, or is it like a thinly
no, it is
veiled?
Kellogg. It's pretty much
Okay,
straight up.
because there's also a really good episode of Drunk History, uh,
Okay.
which stars, I think, the two brothers, the Wilson brothers, Owen Wilson and the other
Oh,
one.
okay.
They play young versions of the Kellogg's in that.
Right. But unfortunately, the Road to Wellville is yeah, it's not very good. Although
Okay.
maybe the book that it's based on might be interesting.
Hmm. Um, so yeah, and I also love the fact that there's this era of people who just like fall into writing because it's like a way to make money. That's like because it just seems amazing to me now in this day and age that like
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like a way to make money anymore. But like because I tried this, you tried that, maybe I'll try writing and then does
Yeah.
make a successful career out of it.
Dash off a few stories to some periodical, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, and then yeah, so interesting, and then goes off and dies at the age of 40 in the Battle of Ypres,
Hmm.
in World War One. So like relatively short life.
Yeah.
But anyway, but like managed to dash off quite a decent amount of work in whatever it was, the 20 years
Yeah.
he was writing.
And clearly had a sort of, I mean, maybe not the pungently strong worldview of a HP,
Mhm.
but definitely a style and like a kind of lens at looking through the
Yeah.
world through this nautical kind of which I always appreciate, as you know, because
Oh
that's
yes.
kind of how this all started a very long time ago, was nautical, right? Nautical as
Yes.
was
Yes, it is. That's
the
exactly what it was.
germ of this
Yeah, I
nonsense.
think we both read The Seawolf, and enjoyed it a lot. That and Death Ship, I think we read them both kind of back to back.
Hmm.
And then yeah. So this is 1909.
And then being grizzled sea
Well,
types discussed
obviously.
it uh,
Yeah, well, I mean,
not
we
down at the
have been,
docks in front of a coffee shop in Akihabara.
yeah, we have been cast in the sequel to that Willem Dafoe Robert Pattinson film, right?
The
That was my
lighthouse.
understanding. Yes,
Yes.
that we are. Yeah.
Yes,
Um,
I get to fulfill a dream and pull you around on a leash.
yes. So this is 1909, and it's a story about a guy called Jessup. He kind of tells us a story, right? It's first person. I didn't notice that the ship is called the Mort Zestus, which is great. Like there's a zest for death, maybe, and yeah, basically it's a slow burn, right?
Yeah, although not that slow, because I mean I was surprised how quickly it zipped
Right.
along, actually.
Yeah. You're right. There's not a lot of waiting around for weird stuff to happen.
No, but you're right. It's incremental and gradual, right?
Right.
Yeah, and oddly absorbing as well. In kind of, I got quite into it, even though I sometimes have a problem with things that are overly written in dialect.
Right. Yes.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can kind of slow, and you just, for fuck's sake, just write it down.
Hmm.
Let me do the
Yeah.
accent in my own head.
Yeah.
But somehow this kind of gets away with it. It's got a pretty good rhythm. Plus, as well, I suppose it helps that our main character is he's not quite. He seems to be of a slightly different class, so he
Yeah.
speaks English correctly throughout, right? And it's all
Right.
the other characters who are like, "Oh, we got you, R&D, Dunta, R&D." Yeah.
Yes. I
Plus,
don't
I
sure
quite
what
like
that
it gets you
was.
in. It gets you in the mood. The book opens with like a kind of a sea shanty, right? And I
Yes.
decided to
Yes.
actually, rather than just skip, I decided to actually actively kind of read it and sing it. And so
Nice.
that kind of got me into, because if you just look
Hmm.
at it, you're like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you actually could actually try singing it, and yeah, it makes more sense like that, right? Because it's all about the delivery more than it is the actual,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so basically, he's come to the ship, and there's one person on the ship who has on its previous sailing.
Yeah, it seems to have dropped its entire crew in San Francisco and taken on a whole new crew apart from this
Mhm.
one fella. And it's there's a lot of rumors about it being cursed in some way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that,
Uh,
to be honest, there's not really that much in terms of it just turns out it is cursed.
yes. Yeah.
And there's something weird going on, and
Yeah.
slowly the entire crew and the second mate and figures it out that where, but it's too late, right? Basically, is
Yeah.
kind of the story, and it's but what I quite liked about it, because I did enjoy this book,
Mhm.
but what I particularly quite liked about it was it didn't go the route of like our main protagonist, even though people don't necessarily believe him straight up, they
Mhm.
it wasn't the usual circuitous route of him trying to convince people that you usually
Yeah.
go on, like
Hmm. No, in
like
fact, he's really reticent to share his thoughts about this
yeah,
with anybody for a long time. You're kind of like, you should probably tell people,
yeah,
because people are now dying. You should tell
yeah.
people, you know,
And
straight.
it's not flat out. It's not like don't be so ridiculous or get out of my sight or anything like that. It's like all these different. So even like you expect the second mate of the cabinet to just yeah, put him in the brig or whatever they do
Mhm.
to people. It's I don't know about that. Like
Yes.
they're they're suspicious, but they're not out. So it's quite interesting because that kind of makes sense to me because my image is this world of the book. The people in it would be massively superstitious,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I think they'd be very credulous, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So I thought that was kind of a nice touch that it's not just you fool. It's
Mhm.
like it's
No,
just
it's more like, don't, whatever you do, don't tell anyone else,
yeah,
because
yeah,
like,
yeah,
don't tell the men. Um,
which is interesting.
yeah.
I didn't expect it to play out that way because the haunting or whatever is what I quite liked as well is it's never I still don't quite know what
Very
it
indistinct,
was.
and I
Yeah,
quite like that. I quite like even the way they're described as these kind of wet looking shadows with
yeah,
these
creepy.
kind of eyes that are just like, poisonous almost, right? But that's all. And yeah, when they're plucking at people, you get the impression that they're completely insubstantial, like that they can't even see. They just get this awful sensation of being torn at.
Really surprised this hasn't been turned into a film.
Me too. In fact, I was thinking about like, something about, like, what are those Japanese like water monster things that kind of just like blob up out of they're in the kind of the yokai list of, anyway. Somehow when I was like, when they were describing the way they would kind of just like emerge from the sea, I almost saw them as being like made of the sea itself.
Are you
uh
talking of the residents of Atami? In which case, I'd like to apologize on Nick's behalf.
the residents of Atami.
Yeah,
I mean, I have spent
that's
some time
Dagon country, isn't it?
I have spent some time down there, and yes, it is, you are looking for the gills underneath the, yes, the
Once
shirt.
again, apologies to the residents of Atami on Nick's.
Yes.
He does not we don't share his views.
No, but anyway, no. The first time I got to Atami, Jen and I arrived at the train station, walked down, and the place was fairly deserted. Like there was like no one was in the restaurants. Everything was really quiet, and there was just like faint drumming coming from like far off in the distance down. And if you've ever been to Atami, it's a steep, steep fucking town right down to the sea. And so we just kind of like wandered down through these like narrow, fishy smelling streets with, you know, the occasional kind of spluttering lantern, and then found this amazing, amazing parade that was happening right down along the seashore with all these huge floats with like just crazy like animatronic dragons and shit on them, and like people shooting fire, and it was completely rad. But there was this moment in the walk down where I was like, this is absolutely something out of an H.P. Lovecraft story.
Right.
Like,
we're never seeing Shinagawa again.
This is the last anyone ever sees of us. But I think one of the things I really like about the book is it really puts across this sense, and apparently, which is great, apparently William Hope Hodgson, much like, you know, Lovecraft apparently was violently allergic to seafood, right? Which supposedly is one of the reasons why.
Yes. Seafood and Jews, apparently.
Well, yes, he was. Yeah, I mean, it's always worth bringing up his inveterate racism, and not just Jews, but really, you know, anyone who wasn't New England, you know, old England, basically.
Anyone who wasn't H.P. Lovecraft.
Lovecraft, yeah. So yeah. Apparently, William Hope Hodgson hated the sea and was actively terrified of it, despite having spent all of this time working on it. And so this image of this feeling of this boat in the darkness on this sea, like this incredible fragility, you know, and the idea that these things are almost made of the dark. I thought that was really effective. Like I was properly creeped out by, so just wasn't necessarily what was happening in the story, was thinking about being in that space and putting myself there.
Well, what's also interesting is it has a light touch when it comes to. So there is the Lovecraftian cosmic horror element as well, but very lightly drawn, right? Like it's hinted at some sort of interdimensionality or something, and you're never quite sure where the threat is coming from, but there is that sense of something leading through into our world, right?
Almost feels at the beginning like it's more like a Gremlins kind of a thing. Like there's something that's like there to like just do harm to the ship, you know, to like be untying, you know, sails and just generally fucking about. But then it becomes increasingly, you know, intense and frenetic, and then.
But there's that scene, isn't there, where Jessup has a chat with Phoebe Cates, and she talks about her dad falling down the chimney and stuff.
Really Christmas, yes.
Reminiscent.
That's surprisingly. But yeah, anyway. And then it does come to quite a boiling climax, which I was pleased and surprised, you know, that like I wasn't necessarily expecting it to go all in at the end the way it does. And it's quite a beautiful and haunting image that it kind of ends.
No, it's definitely it's a good it's not, I mean, again, because very few things rise to the obsessive monolithic work of H.P. Lovecraft, and very few things, right? But if you're not expecting that, because the thing with H.P. Lovecraft, I think, is if you're certainly, at least if you're introduced to it at early enough an age, it, for me, my experience is it totally changes your worldview. Like you start looking at things in a different way.
There's it's almost like a perceptive filter that has been added to your brain that wasn't there before.
And you get so obsessed with it as well. There's one of those things as well, you know, some things that you get into so much that once you're out the other side, you almost discard and forget about it. Not that it's not worth it, but it was just such a thing. So, for instance, I haven't actually sat down and read any H.P. Lovecraft in years and years and years and years, so it's very easy to forget. But I would be totally remiss if I had to put together some kind of list of writings that the most affected me. Yeah, it would have to be, but I might not necessarily think of it because I haven't gone back there because it was so vivid. I don't know, trepidatious about going back there to a certain extent. Not because I don't think it would live up to it, but it's just, I don't know, it seems like the pull of it is so strong. Once you get out. You want
Right.
to just keep going, right? Just in case you get
Yes.
sucked
like
back in.
like that whirlpool in that Edgar Allan Poe
Yes,
story.
the maelstrom, right?
Maelstrom, yeah, that's a
But
fucking great story too.
yes,
Great seafaring.
yeah. But again, as much as I really love Edgar Allan Poe, as much of an influence Poe was on Lovecraft, somehow, and I would, yeah, Poe as well, fantastic. But Lovecraft just has that
Yeah.
extra, some Moorish. I think he puts MSG in his short stories. I
It
think
could be. It
like
could be. It
actually
has a little more
they
flavor.
dust the pages of the books in MSG and it gets in through your finger. But anyway, so it's not that, but don't expect that.
Yeah.
It's just it's a damn good spooky read.
Yeah.
I might even read it again one day, actually, just to enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I had a great time with this too, so I was pleasantly surprised, and definitely. Although I will have to say, actually, I enjoyed even more what a voice in the dark or a voice in the night, whatever
Voice in the Night.
the voice in the night. Yeah, I really so that made me definitely. I think my next step will be to get a collected short stories.
Yeah, quite different from Matango, isn't it?
Yeah, but that you can see the
the
shape of it, the core of it is very much still there. And it's creepy as hell. Like it's really quite a good, and it's a very short story, but he really gets in there and out of there and gives you that haunting kind of like the part of Matango I remember the most, right? Which is kind of that, like the lure to eating. And then he even has the shambling kind of mushroom.
Yeah. But obviously Honda should have kind of, as much as he was able to, I mean, the thing with Matango, I think people forget, is it's quite a noiry kind of sexy picture as well. It's very humid and musty and
I mean, Gokey body, it kind of, to me, again, it happens the same part of my brain that Gokey Body Snatcher does.
Let's watch Matango again one of these days.
I'm actually thinking Jen just was angry at me that she didn't know that there's a living mushroom.
So and there's a decent HD print of it as well around. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I strongly recommend, and that story is easily findable online for free. So go.
And the Ghost Pirates as well. I mean, the Kindle actually cost me $0.
Yes, mine was free too.
Yeah, and not one of those ones. Usually it says 0, and then you go and check out, and it's actually 97 cents or something like that. But no, actually,
it was nothing.
Yeah, and I believe the publisher's firstborn as well. They send you in the mail. Mine's still on the way.
Right.
Yes. Don't know why you'd want that, but yeah. Right.
Okay. Signing
until
off.
Next time then.